Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Think about this for a second. When it comes to your living space, your workspace, you think of the furnishings, the couch, the art, all of that stuff. Do you ever consider the lighting? It probably, I'm not the expert, we'll check with her. It's probably one of the most important things, because if the light isn't good, you're not going to properly see all this stuff that you've worked to put together. Or even if you've worked with an amazing interior designer like she is, lighting is so important, even more with the time change, because we got less light during the day. MaryJo Major, Rise Interiors, joins us once again. How are you doing?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, wonderful to have you back here. Loving that we're going to talk about this, because I really feel that we undervalue the importance of lighting. What do you think?
I agree. I think that it's kind of underrated. People think about just kind of overhead lighting, or do they need, a dining room fixture, kind of the big things on the list. But there's so many other ways that you can use lighting. And nowadays, especially, I recently came from a presentation a few weeks ago that was for professionals in my business. And it was incredible. Some of the cool new technology that I'd love to share with everyone.
Would love to hear it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny we're talking about this. I was at a restaurant brewery over the weekend. Put your light on.
I know. Sorry. I know.
How ironic that we're talking about lighting and then that went off. It's funny.
It just died. It may die again.
That's funny. So I'm at this restaurant, and the person I was with and myself, we just look up and we both start talking about the lights that are above the bar. And they were so damn simple. It was like a mini barrel, and there was like 5 or 7 of them.
Okay.
And out of that was AC line, just cord, to a bulb. And it almost looked like those white lights that everybody puts in their backyard now. I did that like 10 years ago. Everybody's doing it now.
Yes, the little patio lights.
Thank you. And it just had maybe 4 of those coming out of the barrel. But I don't think, if you made it yourself, I don't think that would have cost more than, I don't know, $20 per light. And what a nice effect of this. And it had an orange glow on each of those bulbs that were hanging down from it. But something simple like that just makes a statement. Just like, it was so rich looking, but not a lot of work, but we don't realize it. So
that's so cool.
The trends.
Yeah. Yes, something that I've noticed about how people interact in their home is, so you're just talking about kind of cool pendant lighting. I think in general, people have pretty strong feelings about recessed lighting, kind of all over lighting. Some people don't even have it in their home, but for those that do, I find that it's an interesting point of discussion, especially if I'm just meeting you, because I'll usually walk in and they're either on or off. And sometimes if they should be on and they're not, I'll ask them, I say, do you ever, turn on your lights? And usually their first thing they say is, oh no, I hate my overhead lights, or it's too much, or, they have some sort of reason why it's intense. And most of the time, you just work around it and you say, okay, great. Maybe you can put those on dimmers to help it be less severe. But something that is somewhat cool and new in that whole overhead light sphere is this idea of changing your temperature of your bulb. So how when you go to the home, wherever to get your light bulbs, they'll have different, I guess, colors. We'll have some that is more white, bright white is what they call it, or something that's more
the color temperature.
Yes, color temperature, exactly. And so I think LEDs in particular have come a long, long way in terms of making things look more like what you were used to growing up, maybe in your grandma's house, that kind of that warmer glow. And right now there is this new technology that, imagine waking up and going downstairs or going wherever, and the overhead light is reflecting whatever is going on outside. And so it's this idea of kind of, it's called human-centric lighting. It sounds kind of fancy, but basically you want your indoor lighting doing what the sun is doing outside.
Wow.
And the whole reason for that is because you don't realize it, but your circadian rhythm, like your body feels more relaxed when the interior lighting is reflecting the kind of the outside lighting. And so this presentation was so cool. They showed us how, light, if you think about it, sunlight changes, going from kind of warmer to brighter. Think about the middle of the workday. It's bright, it's the brightest outside, and then kind of fading to the evening. And then imagine your lights, your overhead lights changing the same temperature. So you wake up and it's kind of this warmer, softer glow. So it's not harsh. And then the middle of the day, I don't know if you're like this, where sometimes in the noon, 1 o'clock, you're like, why are my lights even on? You kind of will turn them off, or something about it kind of bothers you. And during this presentation, what was crazy is that the lights were on, but because they were a whiter, brighter light, it didn't feel like your eyes were straining. It was a crazy experience. But what I loved about it was that I had no idea that lights, in particular, your overhead lights, could change temperature like that over the course of a day.
Wow. So I have to believe that to use that system, you'd have a sensor outside to know what's going on with the outdoor lighting, so it could replicate it inside your home.
Yeah, I think this system in particular, you had different settings where you could say different times of the day, and then you yourself tweaked the temperature of the bulb to become whatever it is. So I imagine it would be a couple days of you kind of fiddling with it, of saying, okay, it's 10 o'clock. What temperature inside would make the most sense to look like outside?
Okay.
And kind of fiddling with it and having this kind of program into the system. And so, yeah, I think my other kind of favorite part to this whole idea of having the sunlight being reflected inside was that whenever you have certain specific activities inside, you can, specifically when there's no sun, you have this flexibility to make things a lot dimmer than you might normally. So that was the other part that I was kind of really surprised by, is LED dimmers. How there's a part when you dim a light bulb that kind of flickers a little bit sometimes.
Yep.
And it always kind of annoys you because you're like, oh, I can't get it this low, and you kind of have to make it go a little hotter, And so there are these new bulbs that you can get. I think it's like 3%. I mean, it's crazy, Steve. It's crazy.
That's my biggest frustration with dimmers. And a friend's house, very close, we hang out a lot. And I'll go over there and I'm like, hey, we're going to watch TV. Let's bring the light down. And their dimmer, I'm sitting there like hitting it, and then it's not responding. And then, like, to your point, you can't get it down to just want a little bit of light. It's so frustrating. I don't think it's the dimmer's that old, maybe 5 years old. And the hi-hats, there's nothing wrong with them. And actually, I replaced them. Side note, a lot of those now have a separate transformer. And many people think that the bulb just burns, or the LED burns out, but it's not that. Many times it's the transformer. So I bought them on Amazon and just, put them up there. I'm geeky, whatever.
Of course.
But that damn dimmer.
I know. Well, and so what I found out is it's the bulb itself. It's kind of the technology within the bulb getting to be those low temperatures. So as with most new tech, it's going to take some time, I think, for you and I to find this kind of light bulb out there. But I think what I was most excited about was just this flexibility in color and lighting that I just didn't even know was out there. And on top of that, when you think about, your ideal lighting situation, if you will, you have your kitchen, you have your living room or your dining room, you have all these different, you have a reading chair. And let's just say you're in the same room as someone who wants to play a puzzle or something on one side of the room, but you want to read. And so you have these two kind of competing light needs, if you will.
Sure.
With this technology, you can make certain parts of the room brighter certain times of the day and then darker. Like, you have this flexibility to like have overhead lighting do almost like task lighting.
Wow. You just brought up a thought, like, the overhead lighting. Wouldn't it be great to address each one? Like you said, somebody's in a chair over there doing a puzzle. Somebody's over here, I'm watching TV, but I'm looking that way. But no, it's got to be all of them unless it was really thought out in terms of zones where,
Yep.
dimmer takes care of these two over here, dimmer over here, but usually not. It's the four, and then you got to, kind of strike a blend between all of it. It's come a long way, even in the last, even less than 10 years, even less like
Yes.
6 years.
Yes. The technology, yes, it continues to get better and better. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many years ago. Yeah, LEDs were terrible. They're always that one color and it was really harsh. And
Yep.
now, it's getting better and better. And yeah, I'm curious, I don't think we're gonna be the Jetsons necessarily in like, 25, 50 years, but it is interesting thinking through specifically this small part of your home that I think we all kind of take for granted or we all just assume is one way and it won't really ever change.
Hmm.
And eventually, I mean, I think we're all at some point maybe even going to have apps that have all of our switches. Maybe instead of having like a bank of, 14 switches to all these different moods, you have this app where it tells you, okay, it's 4 o'clock. All right, you usually watch TV over here and you usually are cooking or you're usually getting home and getting dressed in your bedroom. All this kind of programmed in on
It's
your phone.
you can they've had that for a while.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I don't think it's perfected, and you can call out to individual bulbs in doing that,
Yeah.
but you have to set that up that way. And
Yes.
for most people, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Right.
It's,
Right.
to then, and you have to address this is bulb above chair, bulb
Hmm.
above, couch for
Hmm.
TV,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
can control each one. But it's fortunately the prices have come down. I remember this is 2015. Like the only brand was Philips, and they
Right.
are insanely expensive.
Right.
And
Right.
now, since then, all different T-Link, Govee, all different ones have come out, and they're kind of all similar, but some of their apps are better than other ones.
Right.
Kind of trial and error too, to figure it out.
It is. It is. And yeah, I think as time goes on, so as with new technology, it always kind of evens out. And I was going to say that, if you think about like installing a sound system in your house or any other kind of security system, any kind of, I would call it maybe, with the big word systems,
Yep.
I do think it is helpful to have someone in to help you set it up, like you're saying. It is,
Even
yeah,
coming from a geek,
yeah,
for the average person, I'm going to say yes because you do it once and you're
right,
good. And those
right,
LED bulbs last, so long, if not forever.
right,
Um,
right.
do you know the different color temperatures? I never was able to remember, when somebody says, whatever K number, that's
Yeah,
that's more of
yeah,
a white, more of a yellow, or that's more of a blah
yes.
blah. Blah. Do you remember them? Because I can't.
Yes. So if I'm not mistaken, the 2700 Kelvin, I think is
Yeah.
right, the Ks, that is when you think of again kind of growing up with an incandescent light bulb, that is the output. That's the color. Anything higher than that, I think is that more of that brighter white, closer to the 3000
Okay.
mark. So yeah, that's usually where people find they're most comfortable, just in kind of in general. But again, I mean, with this technology of changing the color of your bulb, I mean, yeah, you could have that for maybe, yeah, mid-morning and then it switches, it gets, higher temperatures. It's what's interesting about LEDs, and I always forget this, is because they don't produce as much heat, there's just a lot more you can do with them. So you can have a lot more, yeah, around without like all this extra energy output. And something else, Steve, that's kind of, I might have mentioned it previously too, that I wanted to mention as well with all this new technology is, so, we've been talking about overhead lighting, but bulbs in general, just like your bulbs you put in stuff, has also come a long way. And specifically, there's a bulb that I'm pretty sure it was released within this last year, where it's a rechargeable bulb. Have you seen these?
Oh,
They're these bulbs that, and they're they're premium prices, I would say. They're around $100 or so, but they go specifically with cordless lamps. Like they're lamps that are designed for these bulbs, but you charge the bulb and then you put them in the lamp and they could be dimmed. But you can put them, I mean, you can put them anywhere.
Wow. So, all right. I'm sitting here, I'm reading in my couch. I
Yeah.
want to read over there. I don't know
Right.
why. I just want to be closer to the fire, the fireplace. So
Okay.
I could just pick up that lamp and then just bring it over here.
That's right.
Well, that's
That's
cool.
right. You
Wow.
don't need an outlet. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Interestingly, if you go back a number of years, it was
Hmm.
all about the hi-hats. I remember, two houses back, well, this hi-hat's got the four over here. And then things have shifted. And just what
Hmm.
you said when we first started talking today, that many of us are like, oh, no, it's like, I feel like a French fry at McDonald's with the
Yeah,
light coming down.
that's right. And I also think that overhead lighting, it is a little bit of all or nothing sometimes, where if you're in one room, they're either all on or they're all dimmed. It's kind of,
Yeah.
they're all connected, right? And I don't think that's necessarily bad, but I do think it's challenging if it's specifically a lot of these open concept rooms that I think a lot of us have, and trying to, if your one switch of your overhead lighting covers a huge part of your room, but if you just really only need half of it, let's just say dark, so you can watch your sports game, and the other half light, so so and so can still hang out in the kitchen or whatever. Um, it's hard. So, up until now, I think people just put things on different switches. And so I think this technology is similar in that I think they're two different, I think they call them scenes, but essentially,
Ah,
yeah, they have this flexibility that I think hasn't been there before.
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you think about how you control your light in your
Hmm.
home.
Hmm.
That I just, had a flash when I walk into my bedroom, and it's big windows, love it during the day.
Yeah.
Obviously don't need lights. It's got hi-hats, and I only at night, only when I really need to see, I only turn them on like I'm getting dressed if I'm going out at night or something like that. Other
Right.
than that, I shut them off and I put on the bulbs that are on the fan because it's more yellow and it's got more of a warmer feel to it. And
Yeah.
it's on a dimmer, and I just put it really low. Um,
Yeah.
it's amazing how things have changed where it was all hi-hat. But yeah, to your point, you can get a lot of that in these bulbs. And yeah, they call them scenes. You just change on the app, the scene, whatever you want
The
to call the
scene.
scene.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
scene. And to be clear, I want to make sure everyone knows the hi-hats you're talking about are like recessed cans that have
exactly.
like go into the ceiling, right? About like what is it, 4 inches or so?
Yeah.
They kind of would embed. I remember there were even times when I had certain clients that would want them, but they didn't have enough clearance above their ceiling because it was in a tight spot, so
And
they
the
couldn't get
trusses
them.
in between there.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, to your point, and I
Yeah.
learned this recently at the friend I was referring to's house, that
Yeah.
my memory was the big cans. They were like, that
Yes.
big, and you had
Yes.
to have now they only clear about that because it's all LED. And then next to that, let's say the, lights about this round, it's only that much. And then next to it, you plug in the transformer, which takes it
Right.
down from 120 volts down to 5 volts in the LED light. But again, if anybody has lights that aren't working, it's
Right.
probably the transformer, because in this situation, all the LEDs worked.
Yeah.
I don't know if the house took a spike or something, but there was a few that went at the same time or just after a period of time, because of heat in the transformer, it just burns out.
Yeah.
But it needed to be
Yeah.
replaced, so I had to go up in the ceiling. Not a big deal, but it's things. You think things last longer, but they don't.
I joke about, your new car. I feel like cars, like there's so many things where you get them and you think, oh man, I feel like I shouldn't have to
Right?
have any sort of I shouldn't have to touch it for years, but no. And
Exactly.
yeah, the maintenance, even so, I feel like maintenance with those lights is pretty reasonable considering, again, I don't know how many years ago we were constantly switching out,
Oh my gosh.
incandescent light bulbs, like that we went through a lot more light bulbs. I remember getting like the huge boxes,
Yeah.
because you had to, because you just would go through them so quickly.
And it's like, get the ladder out. So
Yeah.
One thing we didn't touch upon is outdoor lighting, but utilizing this technology with LEDs, apps, and all of that. There's so much you can do, and so convenient where, let's say you don't want to go to the switch, or I used to have a pole light in the middle of my backyard that was on a circuit breaker. And it was, there was no way to control that individual light other than a photo sensor on it. So I used one of those LED bulbs and I put it on an app and I was able to turn it on just by, Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's that's great.
There's a lot you can do.
There is. And outdoor lighting is a whole other world because you have, so much of it is just kind of mood lighting because you can't see it during the day. It's all at night. So, how you want to interact with your outdoor space. You were talking about kind of those little string lights, the little cafe, little bulbs before. And I think the reason why I think people still love them is because not only, do they give sort of light, but they do create like a little ambiance that's like just kind of party feel.
100%.
You want to feel like you're in your party in your backyard all the time. And so, I think kind of the softer kind of accent lighting is super big in exterior, as you know. But specifically, I think about like around pools or around steps. To go along with all this kind of technology, I think we might have even touched on it before. So there's rechargeable bulbs. That's a pretty new thing. But then the rechargeable lamps, I think you and I might have touched on these before. You can get them in a lot of places now, but those are really great for outdoors where you just hook it up to a USB port and you charge it up and it lasts, I don't know, at least a night's worth. Like outdoors, however long you're outdoors. And if you're sitting at your, if you have a little patio table or something and you don't really want to turn on that light, that outdoor, flash floodlight, those really big ones, but you just want something, these little chargeable lamps are great because you just kind of touch them on, they're all touch, and they give you kind of that ambiance without, really intense, kind of like a fun restaurant in a way.
There probably is, it probably looks like they're rechargeable by the sun too. I'll bet you there's some that do that. And, to your point, just the, those outdoor string lights that you mentioned, the mood they set. And that's like the perfect example of lights because just what you said, you pass by a house that has them on, right away you think party, you think restaurant. It just transforms $50 string of lights, transforms it into something totally different. And that's what lighting does, I guess. Right?
Yes, it's a little bit of an unsung hero. I think if you have really good lighting, you don't notice it. But if you have really bad lighting, it's all you want to talk about.
I love it. Glad we talked about it today because it's definitely underrated. Riseinteriors.co. Do I have that right?
That's right. That's me, riseinteriors.co.
And we just, we're skimming lights, but you do everything and you can make suggestions for all of this. And a lot of this can also be done virtually if somebody doesn't live in the DC area where you are. Yeah. It's just, so much we can do with video and pictures where somebody can get a baseline of, or you can get a baseline of what their interior looks like and what can be done with that.
Yes.
It's amazing with technology.
I know. Super cool. I know. It's very helpful.
Love talking with you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much, Steve. It was great.
We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.